Once again, we find October upon us. The air is getting cooler, the leaves are changing color, winter is coming. But more importantly, that means that Halloween is well on its way. And what better artist to talk about on Halloween than Alice Cooper? Alice Cooper is without a doubt one of the icons of shock rock. In a career that spans nearly 50 years, he's done just about everything there is to do in the rock and roll context. And while the image of solo Alice Cooper is the one that sticks in everybody's mind, musically, the songs that one associates the most with Alice Cooper were mostly written during the phase from 69 to 73, when Alice Cooper was the name of a band, not just a man. Combining theatrics and awesome horror elements with badass hard rock and garage band influences, Alice Cooper was one of the finest American bands of the early 70s, and it is no coincidence that most of the songs that Alice is most remembered for were written during this particular phase of his career, although people often tend to forget that. In fact, most people don't even remember that there are two Alice Cooper albums before Love It to Death, 1970's Easy Action, and the album we're going to talk about today, 1969's Pretties for You. In the late 60s, Alice Cooper was just one of many bands starving for their art in the competitive environment of late 60s LA. The band was noticed by Frank Zappa, who signed them to his Bizarre Straight record label because
invariably when they would play, thousands of people would leave the room and I knew they had something.
Zappa was interested in using the Bizarre and Straight record labels to sort of document the LA freak scene that he considered himself to be an integral part of. And because of this, he was often more interested with sort of capturing the sound of a band than he was with actually getting a solid performance or producing the record the way most other industry producers would. And in this case, he chose to emphasize the raw, psychedelic garage rock element of the Alice Cooper Group's live shows, which is why the album has a very underproduced sound. Complicating things further, Zappa apparently lost interest in the project about halfway through, and although the production is credited to the band themselves, supposedly the album was actually produced by Mothers of Invention member Ian Underwood. The album came out, only sold about 12,000 copies, and was called completely dispensable by Lester Bangs at Rolling Stone. But was it? Let's find out. Track 1, Titanic Overture. The album opens up with a brief, bombastic Mellotron intro that is suitably dramatic and really gets you hyped for the rest of the album. Track 2, 10 minutes before the worm. The song is just weird animal noises at first, but eventually it turns into a cool-ish, Beatle-esque psychedelic song with an interesting hook and some really weird harmonies. Track 3, Swing Low, Sweet Cheerio. Swing Low, Sweet Cheerio is probably the best song on this album. It's got cool guitar, cool vocals, and it's just a rockin' song. It's also the second longest thing on the album, clocking in at 5 minutes and 43 seconds. And did I mention that this moment is awesome? I need some money today, Mueller. This song is awesome. It's like a demented psychedelic musical. And I love that chorus. Give a notice of your leaving. Track 5, Living. And you know what? I really like this song too. It's the sort of soaring psychedelic song that brings you to higher states of consciousness. Or maybe not. Track 6, Fields of Regret. Fields of Regret is an awesome psychedelic bluesy piece with some cool lyrics and a really interesting breakdown in the middle.
With death and nature and surprise, all the wretched sinners rise to meet the judges judging them. And when the doom no more can flee, from the flames of misery assists me.
It's one of the longer songs on this album, and totally one of the highlights. And it's got a cool guitar solo. track 7, No Longer Umpire. The song is okay. It's probably my least favorite thing on the album, but I wouldn't call it bad. It just kind of gets boring to me and doesn't really go anywhere. I just don't like it.
Track 8, Levity Ball.
Levity Ball is one of the highlights of this album. It's a great song that unfortunately is once again failed by the production. More specifically, the fact that they chose to replace it with a live cut. Supposedly superior studio versions of this song exist, and, 10 years later, this might have been alright. But it was 1969. The technology for live recordings was not all that great, and this one in particular sounds like it was recorded on a ham sandwich. We're talking bootleg or sub-bootleg level quality here, folks. Track 9, BB on Mars. This is another very short song, only slightly over a minute long, but it's energetic and there's some cool guitars, so I'm not gonna bash it. Track 10. Reflected. With a nice melody, a catchy hook, and some great guitar, Reflected is a great song, and the band members knew it. In fact, the band members liked it so much that 4 years later they took out the R, changed the lyrics, and used it on the $1 Billion Babies album. Here, listen for yourself.
Standing with your head held high, you will be reflected.
It's the same song.
Oh, track 11, Apple Bush.
Apple Bush is pretty cool too. It's got a lot of that sort of weird psychedelic humor, and overall, relative to some of the other stuff on this album, it's a pretty light and fun song. You can definitely feel the influence of Syd Barrett's Pink Floyd, although the song itself is arguably more reminiscent of the Beatles. Earwigs to Eternity is essentially just another short little snippet, but it's pretty cool, with some interesting lyrics that are sort of semi-autobiographical to the band's history, and there's a cool moment at the end. I swear they're ripping off some Beatles song, but for the life of me I can't figure out which one it is. Track 13, Changing Arranging. Changing Arranging is also one of the better songs on the album, and again, I think the band knew it too, because 3 years later they reused the main vocal hook for Blue Turk on the School's Out album. What can I say? At least they got some use out of it. This album is pretty great. No, it doesn't sound like any of the later Alice Cooper albums, but it has a weird, freaked out psychedelic charm all of its own. And the music just really works to my ears, despite or perhaps because of the very weak production inflicted upon it by Zappa, which gives it a crude, raw, grungy sound that really none of these guys' other albums ever totally recaptures. Songs like Swing Low, Sweet Cheerio, Fields of Regret, Reflected, and Changing Arranging are lost classics in my opinion, as really is the entire album as a whole. All in all, I highly recommend it to anybody who's interested in late 60s music. So as you've seen, all in all, this album is pretty good. It kind of follows the trends of the late 60s and kind of does its own thing all at the same time. Even if, admittedly, it doesn't really sound like anything else in the Alice Cooper discography. And yet, at the end of the day, this isn't the strangest thing Alice Cooper's ever done. Oh yeah, we're going there.